Good evening, everybody. How's it going? So my Twitter poll was not very successful. I got 50% more Bloodborne and 50% something else. I just decided, you know what? We'll do some more Bloodborne. Probably gonna try and accomplish a lot today. Hopefully we'll get through all of it. Unfortunately, I don't know how long I'm gonna go today, just because, like, feeling a little low on energy, because I had a very long day of work yesterday. It was interesting and lots of fun. My company is transitioning to, like, doing mostly online stuff, obviously, because of COVID. So it's been an interesting transition period, but a really exciting challenge, I would say. And we're still kind of working out the kinks. And a lot of yesterday was just kind of troubleshooting everything. But today, we're just going to do some very casual Bloodborne. We're going to try and finish off Old Yarnum, and then I'll do a little bit of pathing stuff. Because probably before the next time I stream, if I get through everything I want to get through today, I'll be doing some stuff off screen, so we can come back to some surprises, I should say. I don't want to give away too much, but I've gotten some really great tips from the community, as you guys have been here. So, yeah. Today we're going to do Old Yarnum, hopefully just crush Bloodstarved, and then probably on the docket as well is I actually like to do Hemwick after Old Yarnum. Obviously we'll do some stuff in Cathedral Ward because after Old Yarnum, a really, really cool amount of stuff opens up in Cathedral Ward, and you get to see a lot more of the story, I think. As well as some really, really cool kind of hidden stuff. Most of the community knows about it, but for people who are maybe newer to this game, you'll definitely see some cool surprises. But so we'll probably do Old Yarnum, hopefully Hemwick, and then we'll maybe go to one or two other areas today. Anyway, with that said, I think it's about time to get started. No use holding back. Yeah, so where we left off yesterday, not yesterday, on Monday, when I streamed last, we did a little bit of Old Yarnum, but not too much. People kind of decided, like, they want me to take the longer route through Old Yarnum. There's some cool NPC side quest stuff that you can do. If you just ignore it, you can get a lot of really cool stuff earlier on. But people want to see the plot more so than the cool stuff that you can get. So we'll be taking a little bit of a longer route through this whole area. As you can see, I didn't warm up again today, but that's alright. Right before this, I was making a big old pot of chili instead of getting ready for a stream like I probably should have been. Yeah, so all this is just kind of like usual stuff. We went through it last time. If I go too much further into that platform, the NPC Jura, who is an old hunter, who hangs out in this area, will fire a Gatling gun at me. So we're just going to try and avoid that, because it will kill you pretty quickly. And I don't know how well... Oh! Wow. Got one or two more of these guys. Threaded Cane is amazing for this whole area because everything takes so much damage from the serrated whip form, and there's so much crowd control that you have to do. It's just an incredible weapon for this whole zone. So I don't know how well you can see it, but Jura is actually right up on that clock tower. So we're looking down. You look up and see that little, like, weird thing kind of on top, next to the spire. And that is Jura sitting at his Gatling gun. And he has a friend down in the plaza down below who will also give you a lot of trouble. He doesn't have that NPC doesn't have a name. He's just kind of referred to as the Saw Spear Hunter, because that's the weapon that he uses. Yeah, and we can see Jura's firing. That's interesting. Hold on. Come on. Yeah, so the turret does actually move, and this is a cool, fun thing. It becomes a DLC weapon later on. I've never used it because, one, it's really tough to get, actually. It's early on in the DLC, so you can get it relatively quickly, and, like, probably about early to mid-game, if you're so inclined. But you have to go through some really tough NPCs to get there. So basically what it is it's the Gatling gun, and you have to fight an old hunter in the Hunter's Nightmare to get it. And in that same cave is a boss as a regular enemy and a bunch of really tough smaller enemies. They're basically just powered up versions of all of the old Yharnam guys. So unfortunately I only unlocked the first shortcut in this area. The second shortcut is way more useful, because you get to skip this whole beginning section and get to Bloodstarved. I think they did that on purpose because Bloodstarved is a boss that a lot of people have a lot of trouble with. And to be honest, he is tough. Bloodstarved Beast is for real. So the reason I have backed myself into this corner, despite the fact that it's not very advantageous for the weapon I'm using, is basically this whole area can be shot by Jura. So even though he is... Oh, hello. Even though he's like up on that clock tower, he can get that thing real tight along this wall, but the trick is just to run along the wall, and he won't be able to get you. Also, this plaza is very deadly because of that guy right there. That is the Saw Spear Hunter, and he is for real. I would say he is one of the harder hunter fights in the game, honestly. So this is the first shortcut. You get to it just by opening up. You go through this whole, like, big church clinic area, and then you open it up right over here. And then next to it is the path forward. I really love the shortcut design of Old Yharnam, specifically. There are a lot of really, really stellar shortcut design things going on in Bloodborne. I would say that they are on par with, if not better than, the Dark Souls 1 shortcuts. Because I don't know how familiar people are with the way Dark Souls 1 is designed, but that whole map basically strings all together without very much overlap or impossible space. There's like 2 or 3 instances where areas kind of lay over each other in the game world. And then there's one instance of, like, they just took a hallway and, like, shrunk it so that you're not walking for 20 minutes. And so that whole game is designed around this idea of being able to traverse it very easily. And this game is a little bit different. I think that... and I don't know this for sure, but I would say that the main thing with Bloodborne is a lot of these areas are built vertically. So you get a lot of, like, you start at the top or start at the bottom and work your way down or up. Ooh, okay. So these guys are not the worst, but they are for real. They can definitely do some damage. They're not as bad as the ones on the bridge, because you, at this point, hopefully have a +3 weapon, or at least a +2. But they do crowd you like that. And kind of like what I was saying before. Jesus. And this is really the problem, is they get together and then it's just impossible. So the trick is, if you can get them to separate, they're much, much easier to deal with, because especially if you're using something like a threaded cane, you can just kind of do it. Once you've got them down to 1. And they also drop bloodstone shards, and this is one of those things that I really love about all FromSoft RPGs, is they really are designed in a way to be like, hey, you should probably upgrade your weapon. If you haven't done it yet, definitely do it by this point. So we're gonna run down here real quick. There's not much down here for right now. There's this item to pick up. Just some bloodstone shards. And then this gate does not open from this side. And I've talked about this before, but I really love the door prompts in these games, because this is so much more information than locked or closed. This tells you, okay, this door opens somewhere else, which means eventually we'll get to the other side. Yeah, but Bloodborne, a lot of the levels seem to be built vertically. So like this level, you start all the way at the top, you work your way all the way to the bottom, and then you get a really convenient shortcut that I'm going to open up here in just a second. Oh, and this is a great piece of just environmental, like, event design. I love that. I love that he just bursts out of the door that looks like you can't open it. Because, like, the first time you play through this area, you're just like, oh yeah, building, whatever, and then he just, whoom, right on top of you. Yeah, these guys are almost guaranteed to drop either bloodstone shards or blood vials. That item design is really, really nice, because it tells you, usually you will get items in the area that tell you kind of what the area's deal is, or where you should be. So like, these guys dropping a bunch of tempering bloodstone gems, and bloodstone shards, really lets you know, like, okay, I should be at, like, at least a +2, definitely probably a +3. Oh hey, what's up, Trouble Twitch? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in, man. I was just talking about how really nice they place items in FromSoft RPGs, of like, this whole area, everything. Have I been well? I've been doing pretty good. The week has been a little bit weird, but overall pretty good. So this is probably my favorite shortcut in the entire game, because it loops you all the way back up to the top. This ladder will take you to the very entrance, and you can just very casually drop down from the entrance to this shortcut. And the idea of just bypassing the entire area in one shortcut once you get here is so, so cool. Yeah, but, so everyone dropping kind of bloodstone gems and bloodstone shards are like, hey, you should put all of this stuff into your weapon, because you might be doing okay now, but you're definitely going to need some help soon. You probably want to be at +2 or +3. This is a really fun ambush. We've got this guy up here. He's just hanging out on the side of the building. And there are a couple of cool ambush designs like this throughout the game. The other one is going to be very, very late game. But we'll see it. And you can target him. So if you happen to notice him, you can totally do this and get the upper hand. But basically, he just hangs out on the side of that building so that you come back here, pick this item up, turn around, and all of a sudden there's a wolf behind you. What's my favorite location? It's hard to say. I'd say, honestly, like, probably my favorite location to play through is Old Yarnum. I do really enjoy this area. I think the design of it is just really cool, and the story surrounding Old Yarnum is really interesting. In terms of my favorite area, in terms of like overall design, probably the fishing village. And we'll, of course, like, we'll get there way, way later. I don't enjoy playing that area because it is horrifically difficult, but everything about the fishing village is just mind-blowingly cool when you think about the story implications. Yeah, we get it. So this guy does something interesting. He gives poison to the other enemies, like, within the range of the scream. So this guy now has poison. And you can tell by the red in his eyes. Ooh. What's your favorite location, Trouble Twitch? What would you say your, like, favorite area is, either to play or just, like, in terms of design? Oh, shoot, I forgot about this guy. Come here. Got him. Mind Yarhar Ghoul? Yeah. So specifically the Unseen Village. You know, I do have to agree that that is such a good point of, like, it's so rare to come across a FromSoft area with music. And the fact that Yarhar Ghoul is just filled with this really, really ominous music is so... Oh god, I just got lost in those statues for a second. That music is just, like, it's haunting, it's kind of ever-present. It is a cool area. I think my one problem with that area is enemy respawn. It's one of my least favorite gimmicks from, like, all FromSoft. I'm more okay with how they did it in Dark Souls 3, where, like, when you're in the catacombs, the gore werewolves in the village look disgusting. Yeah, they super do. Everything in that area is horrifying. The game, like, really pops off when you get to Yarhar Ghoul. And I think, the fact that you get to see it a little bit early, too, if, like, the right events happen, is something that makes it even cooler. Because you get there and you're like, what is this place? I can't really access anything, so, like, clearly I'll be coming back, but I have no idea when. And then when you come back and everything is so much more messed up, and you're just like, oh dear god, what happened? Yeah, but Yahar Ghul is great. It's very, very haunting. Just a cool area in general. I think my one reservation with saying that that's one of my favorite areas is again that the enemy respawn stuff. And I've never been a big fan of that gimmick in general, of just like, okay, you killed the enemy, and then it came back. It just feels kind of like I get the challenge of it, and so the idea is like, okay, I have to push forward. I have to like find the Bell Maiden so that people stop respawning. But at the same time, it's just this feeling of like, yeah, but also I hate it. Because if I can't find the Bell Maiden, and they hide some of them really, really well, you just end up with this feeling of like, nowhere is safe, I have to keep constantly moving. Oh yeah. Alright, nice. I deserve that burn. At least in the village, there aren't any gas coins in their easy beast forms. You know, it's funny that you bring that up. Because when I finally did defeat Gascoigne, I don't know, were you here when I beat Gascoigne last stream, Trouble Twitch? Because he did this thing as soon as he got into his beast form where he kept doing the like jump forward thing, and that was the thing that I was talking about, is like you can lock him into that attack where he like jumps forward with just a single swipe, and it's really easy to parry, but but of course, as soon as I put that out into the universe was like, oh, you think Gascoigne in his beast form is easy, do you? Well, we're just gonna have to correct that. Which is why I'm holding my tongue in general on Bloodstarved. Just no comment on Bloodstarved, we're just gonna see how it goes. I really like Bloodstarved's like whole design, and the music for Bloodstarved is great. It's just a cool boss, and like, yeah, did you get stuck in the wall? Oh, darn it. Oof. A little early on my shots. Is probably spinal fluid. Yeah, this whole boss is just absolutely disgusting. So I don't have too many strategies for Bloodstarved. But I should bring it up because it's a boss that a lot of people have trouble with. Typically, Bloodstarved attacks from that one direction. Alright, that's phase 2. So that first little scream indicates the phase change for phase 2. Bloodstarved has 3 phases for people who are unfamiliar. I'm going to talk a little bit quickly because this boss is actually pretty tough. Okay, and the command grab. Yeah, the stuff coming out of Bloodstarved is probably spinal fluid. Yeah, because it's empty of blood, but it is spewing poison everywhere. Usually my strategy with Bloodstarved is if you keep to its right side, your left side as the player, most of the attacks come from that side, so if you just strafe around with your dodge, you can usually get the iframes well enough that it's not a huge problem. Unfortunately, it just is a tough boss. I think a lot of people, this is where they get stuck. Especially, like, there are some people who, like, deal with Gascoigne really easily and quickly, and then they get to Bloodstarved and they're like, whoa, this was a rude awakening. Yeah, so this is the shortcut that we opened up. It's great. Can't forget my hand lantern. Oh, and I shouldn't forget to change back to this. There are obviously, like, that's not the only strategy, it's just the one that I find the easiest for people to hold on to. Hey, I never said that the Bloodstarved Beast is the easiest beast. I specifically said no comment. Gotcha. Yeah, so those two wolves over on the bridge usually will leave you alone if you stay far enough away. So really the only enemies you should wipe out on your way here are that guy, the two in the building, this poison fellow right here, and there's another big wolf guy. You ever had any ideas for a sequel? For a sequel to Bloodborne? You know, honestly, that is one of those things that I debate very deeply with myself because I want the mechanics of this game back, right? But I kind of love that it just ends and it's a perfectly good standalone story. I think, again, I've said it before, I think rather than a sequel, I would love to see a PC port for this game, because so many people don't give it the time of day, simply because it's a PlayStation exclusive. If I had to say any ideas for a sequel, probably do what Dark Souls 3 did to like 1 and 2, where, like, we jump many cycles in the future and kind of get to see another society that has emerged and started to fall to the beast plague, and we're getting into that, like, cyclical nature of things. But I don't know if it really works with the thematics of this game as much as it does with Dark Souls, because like Dark Souls at the end of the day becomes a series about the heat death of the universe, of just the inevitability of time ending. Like, the sun will burn out, and we're going to have to accept that as a reality. And it's really dark. And I think that this game taps into a similar feeling of existential horror, which is a genre that's really hard to place your finger on, but you kind of know it when you see it. I would say that Dark Souls tonally probably fits in existential horror, without being a horror game. Because, again, it's these feelings of, like, we're talking about existence as a whole and, like, the end of time. And I think Bloodborne taps into that with, like, kind of the end and, like, the limits of humanity. And even just, like, with the Beast Plague, we see evidence that it already took the Thumerian society, and the Thumerians figured out some kind of arcane magic that made them live forever, and they still fell to the Beast Plague and live in these, like, crazy underground catacombs. Thing about Bloodborne is, since it's semi-modern, technology advances far more rapidly than Dark Souls. That means a sequel may not even have the same weapons, and if it does, they'll be retrofitted. Yeah, I think the thing with Dark Souls is it's not even a means of, like, Dark Souls could have more technology, but part of the idea behind Dark Souls is this class struggle between the gods and humans. And we I mean, it's going to be hard without getting into like a lot of deep detail. So I'm not going to do like too deep a dive, but I think a lot of why Bloodborne has the technology that it has is because there is a central society, and there's no oppressing force, right? Where Dark Souls, Gwyn is actually an oppressor. He sacrifices himself and splits his soul to other great immortals in order to keep humanity in check, right? Because humanity has inherited the Dark Soul, and the Dark Soul will eventually consume everything, right? Whereas in Bloodborne, the gods are vengeful, but they don't exist to help or hurt humanity specifically. So really, we see a society built around the healing church as a kind of religious oligarchy, or even maybe a religious aristocracy. We don't get a huge sense of like a one high holy figure. We kind of see the church as a whole as the ruling class. But I guess you could kind of look at Ebrietas as the holy figure, even though most people don't know that that's what they're worshiping, and that's where a lot of the blood healing comes from. So I think the thing with Bloodborne is like society was allowed to advance for longer because there isn't something actively holding it back in this universe. But of course, man is kind of their own. They serve their own undoing in Bloodborne, and so I think that that's the distinct difference between the two, and why that kind of cyclical nature that you see out of Dark Souls may not work as well for a sequel for Bloodborne. But I would say that as long as Miyazaki was directing, or someone like that he trusts was working on it, I would be down for a sequel. But more so than that, I think I would rather see a game that is the spiritual successor that takes a lot of the mechanics, like the rally, the transforming weapons, that kind of stuff, and kind of fits that to its own story and universe. So that would be my take on a sequel, generally. Because the truth is, I don't think that this story needs a sequel. Again, we see the rally mechanic like really helping out in this fight. Bloodstarved Beast does a lot of damage really quickly, and that's something to... So that move is rough. Also, the 3 swipes are tough. The other big one is that command grab that I got caught by last time. That is a guaranteed kill every single time. So I'm trying not to use it, but you could totally use fire paper to make this boss fight way easier on yourself. But most of it comes down to just like get the parry windows right. So this is phase 3. That's something that I should point out for people unfamiliar. At this point, being close to Bloodstarved Beast at all will poison you. Will like slowly build up your poison. So that's a dangerous move to get caught in, because that will just kill you. Oh. Unless you can manage to dodge through it in a very lucky window, frankly. Okay. That's the other trick, is like once you get to phase 3, that poisoning builds up pretty quickly. Stakes Yeah, so that's a really interesting point. Of the stakes seem higher in Bloodborne because the gods of the world in Bloodborne are on a higher plane to the ones in Dark Souls, who primarily share the world with mortals. And I think that that's true in a lot of ways, but is maybe a little simplified. Because again, the gods walk the same earth in Dark Souls, and they do a little bit in Bloodborne, but we don't see the gods in Bloodborne walk the same earth as often, but they totally do. And I think the big thing is like humanity is a form of God in Dark Souls. They just aren't immortal, but they make up for that in that the Dark Soul divides infinitely, whereas all of the other Great Souls do not, right? So, and I'll have to like go back and do some more reading on the Great Souls, but they each are sort of mirror images of themselves. The Chaos Flame and the Great Soul that Gravelord Nito gets are supposed to be like opposing forces. And then Gwyn's Great Soul of Light is supposed to directly mirror the Dark Soul of humanity. You just had an epiphany, Trouble Twitch. What was that? I'm gonna run to Bloodstarved while you let me know. Huh. So the epiphany, for people who may be watching this later without the benefit of being a part of chat, Demon Souls and Bloodborne are both PS exclusives. Both introduced a new style of play to games: slow and difficult combat for Demon Souls, fast and difficult combat for Bloodborne, and both take place in a single city. That's from Trouble Twitch in chat. Yeah. I think Demon Souls is a little more spread out, but it's about as spread out as Bloodborne is. I mean, the core crisis is really in Demon. It's really the core crisis is in Boletaria, and then in Bloodborne, the core crisis is in Yharnam for sure. And I think. And I'll be honest, I don't know Demons as well as nearly as well as any of the others. Because unfortunately, that game was pretty much dead by the time I got into Dark Souls. Of like, I could have had an opportunity to play it when the servers were still active. But I did not own a PlayStation 3, so I never actually played through Demon Souls. I have watched playthroughs of it, so that's where a lot of my information comes from. But I think one of the big differences with Demons and Bloodborne specifically is like Bloodborne is torn apart by different factions. I think Demons is kind of torn apart by individual greed. Like there's a lot of individual selfishness in Demon Souls, and all of the like NPCs you run into are kind of there for their own reasons. Whereas I think like in Bloodborne, frankly, it's a lot more political. All of the factions are kind of vying for power and money, but none of them really want to be at the forefront of the public's mind. And we even see it like within just the workshop hunters. you get a lot of different sects among the workshop hunters, and then you get all these different branches of the healing church, both in terms of like hunter branches, but also just like different kind of levels, different jobs, I guess you would say. And we don't come into too much contact with that, but like I would say like the choir, when we get to it, isn't really a hunter sect. They kinda are, but like mostly they're just the church elites. And then like we get people like the executioners who are kind of supported by the church, kind of not. They're considered extremists, and like they exist solely to wipe out the Vile Bloods. Oh yeah, the a spiritual successor to Bloodborne with blood in the title, but without born, and like could be multi-platform. So the only issue I think you'll run into with that is I believe Activision owns a significant piece of this IP, and also part of how this game got funding was that it was a PlayStation exclusive. And I think Sony, for the most part, is going to try and hold on to a lot of PS exclusives. But I totally think, as we've seen the trend go forward, Sony's totally willing to release some of their PlayStation exclusives on PC, especially if they're old enough. We're seeing it with Horizon Zero Dawn. And I totally think that Bloodborne would be a great candidate for PC. I think people would really appreciate it. The only thing I worry about is, like, frankly... Ooh. Okay. Oh! I didn't even realize that I got poisoned there. Woof. I was not paying attention. The only thing I worry about with Bloodborne going to PC is part of why I think the Dark Souls community is so much more toxic than Bloodborne is that it is on PC. And the PC players of Dark Souls are just... I know I'm gonna get, like, burned at the stake for this, but, like, they're really insufferable. The PC community of Dark Souls, just like the fact that there are people who are willing to cheat in the game, invade other people just to ruin that playthrough so that they have to start over, or to like place items in people's inventories that mark their games for cheating so that like they get booted and like lose the license, like that kind of behavior. And I know it's not the whole community, right? I don't want to generalize and be like, oh, well, everyone in the PC community is like that. But like the fact that that is a thing in the PC community, I would hate to see that kind of behavior come to Bloodborne, because my experience with the Bloodborne community online is almost entirely supportive, almost entirely like positive and wholesome. And I would really hate if this did come to PC and people just didn't appreciate it for really what it is and how good it is. And it's a game that a lot of times goes kind of unrecognized, but more and more people play it all these years later and appreciate it so much more. Of like, just like one example is Jason Schreier, the editor from Kotaku, has a whole article on why he thinks that Bloodborne might be the best game ever made, and how it like kind of ruined a lot of other RPGs for him because of how well polished it is and how well thought out everything is. And I guess like when you feel so much of that from the community as a whole. The idea of like welcoming a whole new, really large group of people in is scary, but I would so much rather share it with them than not share it with them, you know? Of like, and again, I don't want to, I never want to be that guy to like gatekeep a thing, because that can only be a negative for people and for communities in general. Of like, gatekeeping is, gatekeeping is absolutely the thing that ruins series for people, and I would never want to do that. And so even though I know that there's like kind of this great risk involved, I would so much rather see it come to PC, just so that more people can appreciate it and can play it, because I think it's a really incredible game. Whoa! Oh god, why are you here? Oh god! Alright, we're just gonna run for it. Trouble Twitch, I know you're saying stuff in chat, and I will definitely read it in a hot second, but I just gotta get away from that wolf. Dude, is he still after me? No, he's good. Alright. If it makes you feel any better, it'll probably get a massive boost in quality on the PS5. Yeah. You know, honestly, a remaster of this game too would be great. It doesn't need it, honestly. Like, they could just straight up be like, yeah, run it on PlayStation 5. But like, if they were to like remaster it, because like, I'll be perfectly real. To go back to like base Dark Souls 1 now after playing remastered, it was done so wow, that was bad. Remastered was done so well that I just would love to see. Oh my god. Maybe a decade from now Bluepoint could remake it. You know? Maybe. I've mentioned this before. The guy who made DS Fix for the PC version of Dark Souls 1 also has a PC studio now. Any ports, like if this were to get ported to PC, that would be the studio I would want to do it, because like that guy clearly has so much love and takes so much care for these games. Because like he did that on his own dime, on his own time, for no profit at all, you know? Okay. Apparently we're gonna struggle with Bloodstarved a little bit. It might be time to bring out the fire paper. Poison Drunk Hunter, yeah. Maybe I'd do better if I were drunk. Get me to relax a little bit. Yeah, but I would love to see if they did a PC port, and I know that they probably wouldn't hand it off to that studio just because like they're gonna be so like I haven't followed them too much since he like announced that he was opening it, but like that's gonna be a very small studio that would take great care in porting this. So I would love to see them do it, but it probably wouldn't happen, even if this did get ported to PC. I just hope that, like, we wouldn't get the same kind of issues with a PC port that Prepare to Die edition had. Because that is like an unfortunate thing with Prepare to Die, was like you do need to run it with mods, otherwise it's just a broken mess. I just completely whiffed that. Whoop. Big woofy. Can I just say how much I really, like, I have underappreciated the threaded cane for so many playthroughs. Doing this playthrough with the threaded cane right now, what a good weapon. Oh, you're talking about the missing content in the Chalice dungeons? You know, honestly, like, that restored content kind of stuff, I always love to see it, because I just want to know. Like, I'm just that kind of person who's, like, very curious. But, honestly, when people put a lot of stock in restored content, or, like, stuff that's under the surface that clearly, like, got cut kinda last minute, I think a lot of that stuff gets cut for a reason, you know, and it's a really cool thing that we have the advantage of in video games, especially looking at them as an art rather than just like a piece of entertainment or a piece of media, that we get to see a lot of the artist's work. We get to see, we get to see the team like really build into the piece. And it's kind of like when you analyze a classical painting and you can kind of look at the brushstrokes and go like, okay, they used this technique or that technique, and like here's why they did it, and like it informs you. But when it comes to restored content, it's almost like if you were to look at a Van Gogh, right, and peel away like the top layer of paint and then look at the paint underneath and be like, now that's the real art. So it is one of those things where it's like, I love knowing it, I love seeing it, but I think people put a lot of stock in trying to get to that cut content. And there are definitely some cases where you could make the argument the other way, where like, if we're talking about like Knights of the Old Republic 2 especially, like a lot of that game got cut because like poor Obsidian was just out of time and money, right? And the restored content mods for that are great because like now there isn't a fifth of the game that's missing, right? But when it comes down to it, do you need the restored content to enjoy most games? Because like a lot of the times you don't. And like seeing like the extra headstone in Demon Souls, right, is cool, but that area got cut for a reason, you know? And like it would be cool to see, but at the end of the day, they cut it because they didn't have time to do it the way they wanted to. And so looking at it, and like kind of making it a part of the whole is, to me, it just like, it feels a little bad, right? Because like they couldn't do it the way that they wanted to, or like it didn't get up to the place that they wanted it to be at, and now we're judging them. Oh my god. That move. That's a nice analogy. Thank you. I tried to like, I try to make it as kind of understandable where I'm coming from as possible. Because again, it is one of those things where it's like we get some really unique benefits in looking at video games as an art, in ways that other mediums just can't communicate to us. You know, you as the player have to engage with the art form in order for it to work at all. And I think that all art is like that in some ways, of like, what is a painting saying if no one's looking at it? You know, what is a piece of theater if no one's in the audience? But video games take that to a whole new level, in that, like, your active choice and your active interpretation shape the experience. And so when we talk about, like, looking under the surface of games, there's a lot of things that are great and are informative and make the experience better as a whole. But there are also a lot of things that it's kind of like, all right, but, like, that's not there for a reason, you know? Or, like, they left it in because, like, they wanted it to be in, but, like, couldn't finish it. And, like, I think some experiences of, like, knowing the depths of the mechanics are a huge benefit of, like, I used to play a lot of competitive Pokemon, and that scene wouldn't exist if people didn't dig into that game and, like, find out the underlying mechanics and kind of expose things like EVs and IVs and, like, the Pokerus kind of stuff, and like how Mew is hidden into the first generation of games. Like, a lot of what makes that game special is, and, like, a lot of what built that community is that people dug into it to find the underlying mechanics. But a lot of games just don't need it, you know? Of, like, look at things the way the developer wanted you to, because at the end of the day, that's the experience that they wanted to craft. At least my echoes are, like, right here. Oh god, that's a bad camera. Bad camera. Don't do that. Man, I really wish I had higher poison resistance. Whoop. Okay, and we're poisoned. Oh god, that grab! That grab gets me every time! Have I ever played Shadow of the Colossus? I actually have not. I do have it, though, and it is one of the games that I would like to play for the stream at some point. I've seen playthroughs of it, because, of course, I kind of got to a point with Shadow of the Colossus where, like, I didn't expect the remaster to happen, so I was like, I should, like, watch playthroughs of this, like, pretty legendary game. But hopefully that's something that we can dive into, because there's a lot of really great environmental storytelling in Shadow of the Colossus. Honestly, that whole game built around, like, it just, the twists that game takes are really cool. Oof. Bloodstarved is giving us a little bit of trouble. I'm gonna give it one more, like, really solid try with the threaded cane, and then I think I may have enough bloodstone shards to upgrade the saw spear. And honestly, that may be the better choice for Bloodstarved. Because, like, we're not going to get the extra serrated damage off with the threaded cane, because there's really no point in using the whip form against Bloodstarved. I think it's just too fast for the whip form. So if I do another loss on this, I'm probably gonna upgrade the saw spear and take that into that fight instead. Because I think the serrated will help us get through. There's a YouTuber named Nomad Colossus who for nearly a decade has cataloged the development and cut content for the game for Shadow of the Colossus. That's really interesting. So he sounds kind of like a Vati Vidya of Dark Souls and Bloodborne. Where, like, that dude just deep dives in lore. And, like, I know about the controversy of, like, people say he plagiarized on some of his Bloodborne videos. I don't know about that too distinctly. So I'm not gonna comment too much. But I think in general he does pretty good work. Whoop. I thought I got the parry off. Man, she is doing that grab move way more than usual. Or at least way more than I'm used to. Why is that not working? There we go, finally. Yeah, I think Shadow of the Colossus is a really interesting game because, like, it does so much with so little. Like, the mechanics of that game are pretty simple. It's basically just a big old boss rush. Okay. Woof. Alright, we're gonna go pick up the saw spear. He predates even Vadi. That is really cool. Okay, so his videos on the layout of Shadow of the Colossus's map helped the developers in the remake to, like, remake the map. I did actually know that, like, the remake of that game was a fascinating process of, like, reverse engineering it from the ground up. I find re-releasing games to be such an interesting world to dive into, especially the history of, because so much of it relies on piracy, um, of like a lot of the older Nintendo games, they didn't save, like they didn't archive properly. And so when they went to go re-release them for like the eShop, they ended up pulling a lot of the file dumps that people had posted online for free for emulation purposes. And then of course, as soon as they got all the files they needed, they ordered a lot of those sites to shut down. And like, I'm a big Nintendo fan. They were definitely my first exposure to video games. But like, bad move, guys. That feels really shitty. Plenty of cut colossi too. Oh yeah, there are tons of cut colossi. And looking through some of the concept art of that game is super cool. Alright, so unfortunately, I think that has... Oh, wait, no, we have tons of bloodstone shards. Good, good, good. Because If I get to everything I was intending to today, hopefully we can do some... I can do some off-screen stuff and have a very cool surprise the next time we come together. Yeah, so I'm just gonna switch over to the Saw Spear for this. Puts out a lot of damage. It just does. I really like the Threaded Cane. I'm enjoying it a lot, but for some of these early beast bosses, like, that serrated, you just can't beat it. Just can't beat it. Dates back 10 years ago. That's crazy. Although I guess that's not that crazy, now that I think about it. Of like, YouTube was at least a couple of years old in like 2010. It does feel weird to admit that 2010 was 10 years ago. But that is, I guess, the nature of time. I still remember the era of YouTube poops. And if anyone here is in their 20s, you probably do too. What a dark time in human history. Another trick for Bloodstarved, honestly, is just to like do a lot of damage up front in these first two phases, because that third phase is really, really dangerous, and it gets a little bit faster every phase. So the parry windows change. So one of the strategies is literally just to rush out damage on it in like the first and second phase. I should mention that. And of course, if you're having trouble, you can always summon in help, either another player or Alfred, the NPC, if you talk to him in that like Cathedral Ward area, will come to help you with the old Hunter's Bell. Wow, okay. A lot of videos had Paralyzer or Let the Bodies Hit the Floor playing in the background. Oh yeah, yeah. Truly the time for Papa Roach as an artist. Those 2010s. Man, I was really hoping to dispatch Bloodstarved much earlier, because I don't want to do too many things, like, off-camera, just because, like, I really want to give people a good, like, look and sense of the game, but, like, there's some stuff that I will have to do off-camera, and I was hoping to do it after this stream before the next time we come together, but may not be in the cards, unfortunately. I am playing like some garbage. Some hot garbage. Give me. Give. Thank you. Yeah, the 2010s were an interesting time on the internet. Lots of poorly drawn webcomics. People being so random. It was a terrible time. Let's never return to it. Like, you know how we all, like, return to decades eventually? Like, styles and, like, sense, like, comedy and stuff comes back around. Like, let's just skip 2010s as, like, in general. Like, those early 2000s and, like, into the early 2010s, like, we can just leave those. Those, we're good. We're good, in general. I don't need rap rock to make a comeback. Although, I loved Linkin Park as much as the next guy. Oof. So, and this is why I don't actually like to use fire paper for this boss usually. It's totally, like, if you're good with it, it will dispatch Bloodstarved really quickly. But the thing that gets me is, like, I tend to play a little more passively for Bloodstarved, and try and just, like, hit the parry windows, hit the... Shame no one else is here. Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate, but also, like, it's Wednesday evening. People got stuff to do. But that's alright. They can just catch the VOD. You're the lucky viewer, watching live. Got me all to yourself, Trouble Twitch. That sounded weird. Don't clip that. Yeah, but the issue with Fire Paper is, like, it doesn't really go along with that strategy of, like, standing back and just, like, hitting the dodge and hitting the parry at the right time. Like, you really just kind of have to close in and deal a lot of damage. And honestly, while I don't feel as, like, shaken by Bloodstarved as I do, like, Gascoigne, not the most confident boss fight for sure. Especially this time around. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But I remember my first playthrough, I was using the Kirk Hammer as my main weapon. Bloodstarved was the worst, because it was just like, yeah, big damage form, not good. Like, not gonna help you out. But also, that short sword form, like, did not really do a whole lot. Trailer for a game I saw today that might pique your interest. It's called Mortal Shell. Interesting. Drop some details. You can't drop the link, I think, because I think I have links turned off for a Twitch chat. Just because, like, that gets a little hairy. But, yeah, let me know. I like a lot of kind of cool strategy art games. That was super weird. I'm trying to get some more PC games set up, but unfortunately my game capture does not want to behave with PC. So I'm gonna have to figure out something else for that. But when I do get it figured out, I got some really cool stuff planned. Some games from, honestly, some of my favorite developers. Dude, that grab, every single time. Every single time. Looks like it has a Souls-like atmosphere with mixed combat similar to God of War. Whoa, that would be interesting. God of War is another one of those games that I should really pick up and play through. Because it's always on... I mean, it's not even, like, on sale as much as it is just, like, they dropped that price real quick. That went straight into PlayStation Classics. Yeah, there are some Souls-like games that I am interested in, but, like, probably won't end up playing or picking up. Like, I think Blasphemous looks really cool. If you get a chance to check it out, totally do. It's more of a Metroidvania than a Souls-like, but it does have a lot of the same vibes. Of, like, it's got the corpse run mechanics and all of that. But it's, I believe, a game out of Spain, and it is based on Catholic literature and, like, mythology, and it's pretty messed up. It looks really, really, unlike most 8-bit games, it actually has voice acting. Yeah, Blasphemous, like, I did watch a playthrough of it, and it looks really good. I just don't think that it's my speed. I'll admit, like, those 2D platformer Souls-likes, I am just not going to be very good at, because I've never been all that great at 2D platformers, other than, like, Kirby. And I do love Kirby, but I have Hollow Knight as well, and that's just one of those games where I'm like, yeah, I'd love to be good at Hollow Knight. I'm not, but I'd love to be good at it. I may end up trying that out at some point for the stream anyway, because I think that game is really interesting. It tries to do a lot of what Souls does with its storytelling, but I don't know if it does it as effectively, to be honest. I think that it wants to be a Souls game and just isn't quite there, which is unfortunate. Ah. Let's see if we can get it this way. Oof. Nope. Yeah, that unfolded saw spear moveset, it's slow, but man, it comes in handy when you need the range. Ooh. This is getting, a little intense. Little intense. Nope, 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 nope. Come on, come on. Those pillars get me every time. 3 viewers. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. It's just been me and Trouble Twitch hanging out for a while, but I'd love to hear from you all. Currently, I'm dying a lot to Bloodstarved, which is not a boss that I expected to have that much trouble with, but I keep getting caught by that, like, one grab move that's, like, real fast. First time BSB, always tough. So, this is a little embarrassing. I have played this game a lot before. I managed to, I guess, call upon some cosmic deities to inflict me with terrible luck for this playthrough, because I started by saying Gascoigne is easy, and then proceeded to spend a stream and a half on him. Did you catch my other comment? Mortal Shell, you inhabit the bodies of fallen enemies and gain their powers. So it's like a darker version of Kirby. Never mind then. No, it's totally cool. I just appreciate you tuning in. The general rule is you're totally fine to laugh at me, especially if I make dumb comments, and then immediately get proven wrong. It's a shame too, I feel like I was doing pretty good that last run, until I hit that pillar. Did not keep my spatial wits about me. And that's the thing about this game, is like, you can know it really, really well, but if you panic and just like start hitting buttons, you're gonna die. And that's what keeps happening to me. Games being developed by AAA veteran developers who have a passion for these types of games. That's really cool to hear. Do you know what the studio name is by any chance? I love keeping track of like cool new series in development. So this is kind of my usual strategy for Bloodstarved, is just like strafe to the left, and parry when you get like pretty easy parry windows. The other thing is just like this boss just gets more. Oof. That move is dangerous, especially if you dodge directly into it. This boss just like gets more and more dangerous as the fight goes on. And there we go. That's a kill. That move is an instant kill. I think some bosses, in some of their later phases, as much as they like are meant to power up and like deal a lot more damage, their attack patterns sometimes get like a little less varied. I would say Amygdala's a lot like that later in the game, of like that later phase for Amygdala. Like, yeah, it's still tough. It's still a very for real boss, but you kind of get a sense of what the attack pattern's going to be like. Called Cold Symmetry. Alright, cool. So everyone keep an eye out for that. A game called Mortal Shell by Cold Symmetry. This boss will break your sanity? Probably not. Honestly, if I start to feel myself slipping, I'll probably just like take a break or like cut it short for the day, which would be unfortunate because I did want to get a lot more done today than just Bloodstarved. But I think part of what makes Bloodstarved so challenging is that varied moveset. And the fact that, like, as the stages advance, you gotta get more and more in tune, you know? Of, like, Phase 2, it gets a little bit faster, and then Phase 3, it gets a lot faster. And you just end up in this... Okay. Phase 3, it just gets a lot faster. And you end up having to, like, really watch what moves are coming out, and sometimes it's too fast to tell. Oh yeah, for people, this is where Alfred is. If you want to take that route. Honestly, my feeling is it's cool to beat the boss on your own in all Dark Souls games. I'm not talking about Bloodstarved specifically. Like, in general, I think in Soulsborne games, it's fine to beat the boss on your own. I think if you summon NPC help, you can still be like, yeah, I did it. If you summon in another player and they just, like, carry you the whole time, then, like, that kind of... but also, like, if you need to get there, like, just do it. It's totally fine. There's no shame. I'll admit, the first time I beat Dark Souls 1, I totally summoned in help from another player for Ornstein and Smaug. Because those two are for real. Those two are for real. I'm gonna try and refrain from summoning in anyone in general. There is one boss I might do it for, because I think it's really funny how challenging that boss is, and how, like, kind of trivial it becomes if you summon in the right NPCs. I'm not gonna reveal which one yet, but there are a couple of NPCs that you can summon in for a boss later that really just kind of crush it on their own, because the targeting maneuvers go crazy. And, like, honestly, that's kind of why I say, like, summoning in NPC help, you can totally be like, I did it. Because frankly, sometimes you just need space to think for some of these bosses, and just, like, getting them to target anything but you for, like, 2 seconds so that you can catch your, like, breath is totally fun. I don't know how other people feel about that. A lot of people have that, like, get good mentality, do it on your own or don't do it at all. I think that that's kind of toxic, frankly. Because, like, these games can be very unforgiving. I mean, we're seeing it now of, like, yeah, I've played through this game a number of times, but Bloodstarved is still giving me some serious trouble, and, like, I think even veteran players, not this particular Bloodstarved, but, like, when you run into Bloodstarved in the Chalice dungeons, he is for real, and people, like, really, really struggle with that. Okay. I just missed that. Use blood cocktails? Oh, yeah. I totally forgot about that strategy. Yeah, so this is a really good point from SNF Drake. Also, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy what you're seeing on this channel, I'm probably going to be playing a lot of, like, Souls-like kind of stuff. In addition to, I've been talking about, like, art games and, like, looking at video games as art and doing that kind of indie stuff, and strategy is definitely a passion. So if you're so inclined, please feel free to follow. But also, if you decide that this is not your speed, I totally understand. But you can totally use blood cocktails to get it to target somewhere else other than you. We might go full cheese here in a second and just do blood cocktail fire paper and just, like, go ham. Because, like, frankly, I'd like to move it along. Because we got some other stuff we gotta do today. Mortal Shell will be for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Cool, multi-plat. So the game that I have been following in development, and, like, it's very early. The Kickstarter, like, basically just closed. Game called Kindred Fates. It is essentially a real-time, like, action RPG version of Pokemon. Definitely check it out if you are interested in that kind of thing. It looks really good, and they've got enough proof of concept there that I don't think it's gonna take the typical route of, you know, some Kickstarter games where it just like gets locked in development forever and just never comes out. Looks real good. That's a game that I'm really excited for as someone who played a lot of Pokemon basically my whole life. I'm gonna take a bunch of this stuff off and just... we're gonna do Blood Cocktail, Fire Paper, which we only got one of, so hopefully this goes well. Ooh, you can upgrade each of your shells the more you use them. That's interesting. That's a really interesting mechanic. Oh, this is totally another option. You can totally pop a beast blood pellet and just like do increased damage. Maybe that's what I'll try first, because that's like the usual speedrunner thing is you'll pop beast blood, fire paper, and just like with the saw cleaver. That was bad. That was a dumb thing. That was a dumb thing that I just did. Common Yarnum clothing. Sweaty clothes are so funny. I love how so many of the items in this game are just there to be kind of gross. Or like, kind of useless. Oh yeah, Kindred Fates looks like the type of game we'd be playing as kids in an alternate universe, and Pokemon would be the Kickstarter game. Honestly, okay. So I feel like I should talk about this now. I am a huge Pokemon fan. I have not touched Sword and Shield for a couple of reasons. One, I don't own a Switch, just for financial reasons. But two, honestly, I've become very frustrated with the path that Pokemon has taken. It seems like every generation we get just kind of a rehash of the last generation, which to some extent is the formula for Pokemon, right? I'm not saying that that's a bad thing in its entirety, but what I do get frustrated by is what I like to call the Sonic the Hedgehog problem of they introduce a new mechanic that like changes the way the game is supposed to be played every single generation now. And it's something that like we saw when Sonic went to 3D of like through Sonic Adventure 2, into like Heroes and all of the frankly terrible Wii game Sonics. And I feel like Pokemon has been doing that for the last couple of generations. And some of them are great, and they're fun to play, and some of them just aren't. I think, for me, it wasn't even the, like, not including everything in the decks, because I get that. I don't like it, but I get it. Because at the end of the day, they're still a studio with, like, only, I think, like, 100 people. Like, Game Freak is not actually a big studio, and people think that it is. And so I totally get them not being able to invest the time into, like, doing, like, every single Pokemon, every single generation. But it's this push towards, like, a new mechanic every generation that kind of blows up the way the game is played, of, like, Mega Evolution was great, both in-game and in competitive play, because it was limited, right? it became something that you would look at a team and go, I know what their mega is, or at least I can guess, and based on that, I know like how to play. But with Dynamax and Gigantamax, right? It is a mechanic that applies to every Pokemon, just universally. And it's this thing of like, yeah, there's meta in terms of like, you can pretty much guess like what they're gonna Dynamax or Gigantamax based on like what's popular. But at the end of the day, any random Pokemon from the other person's team could just blow you up with no prediction necessary and no like actual competitive spirit to it, you know? And it becomes a very difficult thing to play around as a like veteran player. And I do think that it probably introduced a lot of people to competitive, and like there are a lot of other quality of life things that are great in Sword and Shield from what I've seen. But the truth is, things like Z moves and Mega Evolution were fine because they were predictable. Or at least, like, even if they weren't predictable and you weren't expecting it, you could play around it because it didn't blow up your team instantly, you know? Woof. Okay. Maybe I should focus up a little bit. But, I think, like, they've gotten into this process of just stripping away more and more features every generation. And even as they make really great quality of life changes, especially in terms of, like, specialized training, with, like, EVs and IVs, they've made those mechanics much, much more simple, right? And that is something that I can totally appreciate, and I love those changes. But the stripping away of in-game features and, like, essentially now telling us, like, there will never be a Pokemon game with all of the Pokemon in it ever again, but also at the same time buy this service to store your Pokemon for an eventuality if they happen to be included in the next game. Like, that feels bad. Like, I don't want to be told by a company, hey, you know how you have spent like 5 or 6 generations building a living dex? Well, now it doesn't matter, because you might be able to use it, but it's likely that, like, at least a third of it is going to go ignored for the rest of forever, right? I will pick up my thought, but this is getting a little too close for comfort. Ooh, okay, and the Pungent Blood cocktail takes the cake. So thank you for the suggestion, SNF Drake. You were right, that was the thing that I needed. I also apparently just needed to get really mad about Pokemon for a little bit. GG, Bloodstarved Beast. F's in chat for Bloodstarved. Another one bites the dust. And we get some very nice antidotes. It's a good thing I stocked up on blood vials and quicksilver bullets. Yeah, so this is something that I feel I should address. Of like, they've also the thing about lying about reusing Pokemon models. I don't. I am not a 3D artist, so I am not going to speak to the credibility one way or another. I think that what frustrates me is that they specifically said, like a generation ago, hey, we're gonna like delay these games and invest all this time into building these really high quality 3D models so that they'll just be ready for the next couple of generations, right? As we like upgrade hardware and like they didn't say it yet, but essentially like as we move onto the Switch, we can like continue to use these models. And like they may have lost all of that for whatever reason. They may have discovered in switching over to the Switch that like those models didn't translate. I'm not going to speak to that because I don't think that that is my place, and I don't think that it's fair to developers who really do work hard. What I think the issue is with Pokemon is a management issue, right? The Pokemon Company has a lot of money. Nintendo has a lot of money. And if they weren't crunching to make Pokemon a yearly series from a small studio that frankly hasn't had time to catch up to the new generation, because like when we look at the games that they're producing, right? Sword and Shield and Little Town Hero both came out of Game Freak in the last year or so, and they look like 3DS games. They just do. And I think that it's because one, they're used to developing on portable console and not developing on something as powerful as the Switch, you know? And I think that like the power of like yes, the Switch is a portable console, but it's an incredibly powerful console. We've seen it from games like Astral Chain. That game utilizes the Switch to look absolutely gorgeous. And like, yeah, it's only 30 frames, but you wouldn't be able to tell because that game is fast. And I don't think anyone who's played it would want to play it faster than it's going as is. But I just don't think that they've had the time to catch up. And like, I think that their priorities are probably in the wrong place. But more so than that, it shouldn't be a yearly series. And I understand that like the IP is so popular and they need to push these new animes and like there's manga series and there's merchandise and like all of that is on a very strict timeline that requires the game to come out at the right time, right? But that is going to hurt the series overall to the point where now like I don't even really have a huge desire to play Sword and Shield. All I would be interested in playing Sword and Shield metagame on like a competitive battle simulator, but when I do get a Switch, that's not going to be one of the games that's purchased first. You know, like maybe if I can find it on sale or used somewhere, I'll pick it up. But like Pokemon was my favorite series for a really long time. And the feeling that like I would pick up Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem and Breath of the Wild way before I would pick up Sword and Shield is, I guess, kind of telling. Of like, I had a good time with Sun and Moon. I thought that it was really well thought out, as much as they kind of scaled back a lot. But it just it doesn't feel like the heart is there anymore. And that's a shame because I know that there are people at Game Freak who are passionate and who are working really hard. And I think that they just need the time and the appreciation and the funding to make it happen. You know, but they're constantly being pushed from so many other sources. And I've pitched the idea to a lot of people and a lot of other Pokemon fans that I would so much rather not buy a like full I would so much rather not buy a full generation game than pay a monthly subscription for a Pokemon MMO at this point. I would so much rather have them release a Pokemon MMO and be like, you know what? We got Johto and Kanto and nothing else. But guess what? 6 months, a year from now, we're going to add another region. Then we're going to add another region after that. And like, really let the game grow and incorporate in the same way that a Final Fantasy XIV or like a World of Warcraft would. Of like, FF14 has been going for years, and Shadowbringers won awards because despite the fact that we're really far into 14, that was an incredible expansion. I didn't even play 14 before Shadowbringers, and then I saw someone playing Shadowbringers, and I was like, oh crap, I gotta get into 14. And I would so much rather see that for Pokemon. I want them to stop making these like generation just crunch to push it out to make the money, and pay to play a game that has all of my Pokemon and has my living dex and allows me to, you know, constantly grow and expand. But it just, I don't know, it kind of just breaks my heart. Because I do miss Pokemon a lot, to be perfectly honest. But I don't feel that same kind of joy. And like the last time I felt it was playing through Sun and Moon and finally having that experience of becoming the champion and having that mean something. And like, you are the first champion of that Pokemon League playing through Sun and Moon. And it, maybe there was some kind of finality in that experience, but like after that, there's not a whole lot that Sword and Shield can offer me without bringing a whole lot more to the table, right? Of like, that was the experience I've wanted since I played Blue and Yellow when I was like learning to read on them, you know, like when I was really, really little. And like getting to a place where like as an adult I got to finish Moon and sit on that champion throne, I was like, wow, this is an incredible experience. I'm gonna switch over to just like the chatting window for a little bit while we talk about some of this stuff. But and that's the thing, is like there was something really, really beautiful about that experience, and I think that for the series to recover, they need to be willing to make a very drastic change, and they need to be willing to take the time to make it effectively. And part of why I'm so excited about Kindred Fates is it's something that it looks like a lot of people who are like me, who played a lot of Pokemon, really love it, and wanted to see something more from it. And so I did give a good chunk of money to Kindred Fates. I'm not gonna say how much because like that's tacky. But I really hope to be able to stream some of that. And honestly, I hope that that can build into the competitive scene that I've been missing so much from Pokemon lately. Because like, I think it is a huge hole that a lot of people, especially like my age, are feeling, who played it since they were really, really young kids, and now are kind of at a place where they're a little disappointed in the direction of the series as a whole. And yeah, I think like, yeah, so and Trouble Twitch, like you have said a lot of the stuff that like I kind of feel is just like it does feel stale, and like I miss things from older games, even, of like, I miss the contests from Gen 3. And like, I know that that's a silly thing, but like, the idea that there is more to Pokemon than just battling was this really refreshing kind of thing in 3 of like, oh, I can train my Pokemon to battle, but I also have my crew of like, well, like specifically bred and like trained for contests. And having that as a different option was really cool. And what really disappointed me was watching the X and Y anime and watching that whole like Pokemon performance sub arc with I don't even remember the character's name off the top of my head, but like watching that play out in the anime and then being like, oh wait, is that in X and Y? I totally want to do that. I totally want to like build a bunch of Pokemon for that and like get into that. And then I look it up and it's like, yeah, no, that's not in the game. That's just in the anime. And like, again, it's something that Sword and Shield I strikes a really just kind of painful chord is like, Ash has Pokemon in Sword and Shield that you can't get in Sword and Shield. Like, he has Pokemon in the anime that aren't available in Sword and Shield. And like, that to me is just like the disconnect there is just really disappointing. Yeah, and honestly, the other big thing about Kindred Fates that really excites me is it feels like it's a grown-up Pokemon, and not in like a, oh, Pokemon is childish, because it's not. Like, I think Pokemon is a game for people of every age to enjoy, but I think that Kindred Fates does, or at least it seems to strike a like deeper, kind of darker tone and chord with people. And I really hope that when it does come out, I think right now they have it slated for 2023 release. I hope that it is something really special, and that there can be a really great community for it. Because I'll be honest, if there is a competitive scene for that game, I'm gonna go hard into it. I am gonna go right down that rabbit hole. Kindred Fates looks sort of like an evolution of the formula. Yeah, and I like how your bonds with your monsters matter. That's totally something of like the ability to play with Pokemon was great, and I loved that they added it, and I loved the like cleaning and brushing Pokemon in Sun and Moon, but like the idea of them like really actively communicating with you is great, and I think will make a really great game. So I'm really excited for that game. I may, when the time comes, reach out to the developers and see if I would be allowed to stream some of that. Because I did I did subscribe at a tier to get early access to the game. So hopefully, oh yeah, Kinfolk. So hopefully, if I can get permission to do that, I would love to show that game off on stream when we get there. Yeah, so those are some of my thoughts on Pokemon. It was a long rant, but it got us through Bloodstarved, so hooray. All right, let's do some leveling up and do a few things. If you got access to the game to stream, your channel could blow up if the game does. You know, honestly, I would love to have this channel blow up. More so than that, I would just love to build a really nice community. I really hope that people can really come here and connect, because I really enjoy a lot of the conversations I've had with people in chat. Because, like, I think that people don't look at games all that deeply if they aren't actively interested in games. But it is such an interesting medium.
Very well.
Let's do some leveling up. Get big and strong. So I'm gonna up my vitality. I'm just gonna dump all of these souls into Vit right now because that one-hit kill grab move from Bloodstarved taught me that I need a little more health.
Farewell, good hunter.
May I find my worth in the waking world. May we all find our worth in the waking world, honestly. So I'm just gonna swap out these blood gems again, and go back to the threaded cane. Again, I think it's one of those things where I really am enjoying using the threaded cane as the main weapon. I am gonna switch off to a different weapon, but the saw spear is so useful for those early game bosses because of the serrated that it's just like, it's just worth investing in. And you'll kind of see me do that a good bit of like, when I play through this game, I tend to switch out weapons semi-often. Oh, right. So the reason I'm not going to jump into this chalice dungeon right now, but there is a distinct reason why that was the wrong cold blood dude to pop. So the reason I'm going to do the chalice ritual is I will be exploiting some skits to get some stuff for this stream to hopefully make things a little more interesting. Trouble Twitch, you're saying, I have an art teacher who said he was anti-game, and I thought it was weird until I finally figured out he was talking about mobile games. He believed most games were about nickel and diming your wallet to death, which unfortunately, to a certain extent, is true. Honestly, I think that it is true to a lot of extents. A lot of it comes down to what games became most popular on mobile, and it's gacha games. Gacha games just are really popular for mobile platforms, and people invest a lot of money. But there are some really great mobile games out there, and I think the stigma of mobile games should be free and then you fill them with microtransactions to make your money back is unfortunate, because I think that there are some really great games out there that like either are totally worth buying or lost my train of thought. They're totally worth buying or at least investing into. Told him to look up a game called Journey by that game company. Are you talking about like the PlayStation? My stream is lagging bad. There is a good chance that my internet is dying as I watch my Wi-Fi slowly dissolve. Unfortunately, that is a reality of streaming for me. My internet provider is terrible because they have a monopoly on this building. Yeah, the PS exclusive game. Yeah, Journey, I would love to play that game. I have not played that game. It's one of the few games that I'm like, that's a really lovely art game that I'm not going to research at all because I just want to have the experience of playing through it. But in terms of mobile games that I think are pretty good, honestly, It's a game called Alto's Odyssey, and it's a pretty typical, just like Dune, like sliding game. But it's really nice. It's really peaceful. You don't have to spend money on it. You can just like play enough of the game to get the upgrades. Um, but definitely worth checking out. I don't play too many mobile games just because, like, usually that's not what I'm on my phone for. I do have Hearthstone on my phone because I play Hearthstone regularly, and just the fact that it has a mobile version means that it's easier to just play whenever. Your art teacher is a bit of a weird character. Yeah. You mean that in a good way? I would get along? I tended to get along with a lot of art teachers, except for the ones that I disagreed with. I actually got along with a lot of teachers. I wasn't a teacher's pet. I was actually a pretty terrible student as a result of me having pretty bad ADD. But, I don't know. Yeah, no, all our teachers are weird. They're weird characters. They're good, but they're weird. I had a guy who he taught my like advanced art class in middle school, and he did art therapy on the side through like sculpting. I don't know what therapy specifically it was, other than just like I know that it was he had people sculpt, but I don't know what he was like essentially treating with the therapy. But he had not a tattoo because he wasn't allowed to have like proper tattoos. So he would get henna done along his arm, and then when it started to fade, he would just draw the design back in with like Sharpies to extend it for like another month or so, and then eventually it would wash off and he would just get a new design. But I thought that that was the weirdest thing of like, dude, you could just get a tattoo and like roll your sleeves down. It's gonna be fine. And also like, it was the early 2000s, and my school district wasn't like conservative, but like I guess they had a weird thing, like tattoos were still widely kind of frowned upon. But I was like, dude, just go get the tattoo that you want. And it's like, maybe the idea was that he just wanted to test out a million different tattoos. But he was a really cool guy. I don't know what became of him. I did not keep in touch with him. Your art teacher did sculpting and wooden kiln firing. That's cool. That's super cool. I unfortunately have a learning difference known as dysgraphia, which is like dyslexia, but it basically just means it's hard for me to take things from my brain and put them on paper. So eventually I gave up the fine arts. I still do occasional painting just because I really enjoyed it. But that's when I got more into theater and the performing arts, and so that's where most of my like arts background actually is, and that's where my degree is in. Oh, Eileen isn't here yet. Oh right, I have to open the gate. Alright, so there are a couple things. I have a little bit of time, so unfortunately, sounds terrible. It's fine. It's just one of those things you live with. It's definitely not the worst thing to have. It's not like... Again, it's one of those things where it's like, I didn't really notice it as a problem until like I didn't understand why I wasn't progressing at the same rate as a lot of my classmates in art. And like I couldn't figure out why I couldn't like take the image that I would see very clearly in my head and like get it onto the canvas or the paper or what have you. And it even extends into writing to some extent, but I became a much better writer because of the challenge. Because like I did struggle so much to communicate through writing early on that I had to think very distinctly about how to communicate more effectively. And so what it resulted in is more so not like any kind of major disappointment in writing. It actually like helped me in that now I write in a lot of the same way that I speak, but a little more confidently because I don't use vocal fillers when I'm writing. But it's just one of those things, you know? I think we all have our challenges in life, and while my situation is certainly unique in a lot of ways, there are things that make doing fine art very difficult for me, but in the same way, they've forced me to develop skills that helped me a lot in performing. So, you know, there are trade-offs. And it's one of those things too where like, if it were something that like prohibited me from doing fine art in general, that would be really disappointing for sure. But I'm not prohibited from doing it. I'm just not very good at it. And like, I think accepting that you're not very good at something and like still finding the joy in it is something that's really difficult. But if you can do is, I personally think is really admirable. I mean, maybe I'm just, wow, okay. That was a bad time to heal. Maybe I'm just patting myself on the back a little bit for that, but like, it's okay to be bad at things, because like the first step of being good at a thing is to be bad at the thing. And like, you may always be bad at the thing, but if it makes you happy, do it, you know? As y'all can see, I'm terrible at Bloodborne, but I love it dearly. I think unfortunately I am not going to get to do everything that I intended to do, but we at least got to enough of the point that I can do some stuff off screen and come back stronger for the next stream. But I think the one thing I'm gonna do before we end off is climb this tower and then go to the old hunter workshop, because I think that it's a really cool area to explore and it doesn't take very long. Okay. Wow, how did you end up with my souls of all people? Jesus Christ. Oh my god. I just keep getting locked in by that rifle dude. I think there is some level of this where it's like, it's much easier to play this game when no one's watching. Yeah, but I honestly, like, I love art and I love games, and I think that it's a huge shame that not enough people look at games as a form of art, or even like as a potential for art. You know, I've played some games that have been more moving experiences than a lot of the theater I've been to, and that is saying something because like that was my field, you know. But like games like The Beginner's Guide is just an absolutely like crushing experience playing through it, but it's beautiful. You get to the end of that whole game, and I'm not gonna say anything about it other than like it it is really, really stellar. And I will probably play it on stream at some point. But there are parts of that game that feel like they are healing to your soul. And if you don't know what game I'm talking about, it is a game made by the same guy who made Stanley Parable slightly earlier. I also feel similarly about Night in the Woods, which is a game that I will definitely play on stream, but only if I can get a few other people to help me out with it. Because unfortunately, since... Jesus. He nailed me. Since it's not voice acted, there's a lot of reading, and I think that game is an incredible game to experience. Whoa! And if I can get some of my other actor friends about to help me, we can do some voice acting for y'all, and really dig into that game, because that is one of my favorite games that I've probably ever played. And like, that may feel like a bit of a cop-out to some people, because like, again, it's not a mechanic-heavy game, it's a game that is mostly just about the story that it's telling, but he does it so beautifully. Yeah, going on about that game is for a different day, especially with everything that's kind of happened. Whoa! Okay. Oh. Talk about face. That guy literally just blew me up on stream. So this is from Trouble Twitch in the chat. My art teacher once sent our class a message announcing our art project was due. It had an image attached that was just his pottery on shelves and a photoshopped image of a cat sitting like a human. And the cat looked really weird until he realized that there was another cat behind it. That's such an art teacher thing. Of just like weird, dumb, like not even memes, but like kinda memes. You don't know why he did that, but it haunts you so. Yeah, that sounds like a very haunting image. I think that like those kinds of like weird images from like people that you know and really respect are like, they stick out in your brain for whatever reason. And like, I say that because like I had a psychiatrist once, once upon a time, that like on his door was just a picture of a rabbit with a pancake on its head. And like, that was it. That was just the picture. No context there. And I still think about that image probably once a week. He once tried getting a rise out of the city council by placing a nude sculpture in the bay. They ended up liking it. Classic. Classic art. Whoop. Please don't fall. Okay, thank God. That's classic. Protest piece gone wrong. I find art, especially like that kind of environmental installment art, to be so interesting and funny because like it can be misinterpreted so quickly. I did a performance art piece once in college that I'm not gonna go too into it because like it was frankly a pretty like dark subject matter, but everyone thought that it was a Halloween prank because it was happening in like mid-October. So everyone was like, is he gonna get up and like scare us or like attack us? Like, what's happening? I don't want to go close. Which is unfortunate. I think that was just poor timing on my part, but it was for a class, so like I didn't have any other choice on the timing. Like it had to be done then. But like that turnaround of just like, yeah, no, it wasn't meant to be like enjoyed. It was meant to be like a little rebellious. But people just, they were fine with it. The sky and the cosmos are one. The choir. I love that note. The first time I found that note, I was like, wow, who the fuck is the choir? I can't wait to find out. Also, I think the choir is one of the coolest factions in this game. I mean, definitely, like, the powder kegs probably take it for me. But the choir is just, like... When I heard that, I was like, that is gonna be some dank eldritch shit. Also, this area, one of my favorites, despite the fact that I hate both bosses in that area. But we'll get to that later. His name also sounds like the protagonist of a young adult novel. It's so awesome that unlike other teachers, I refer to him by his full name sometimes. Is he one of those people that like has what I like to call a firsty lasty? Of like, no matter what, people just like say their first name and their last name all the time. Oof, that was almost bad. Because like I know a number of people like that where it's just like, yeah, no, they're firsty lasties. You just always say their full name. Okay, it's Steven Dark. I love it. I want to be best friends with your art teacher, Trouble Twitch. So you gotta get him in here to the stream. Because I want to be friends. Take a step forward. This is a fine note. Steven Dark. What a crazy and amazing name. Remember Blood Vial. Oh, that's also a good note. It's a shame. I wish more people were here for this moment on stream. Because when I found out about this the first time, I was like, what? Abandoned old workshop. I love this. I love that the Hunter's Dream is based on a real place that you can go to in-game. And even more so, I love that you find a little piece of history there. And like there are little Easter eggs at every special place. Like, here's the bath messengers. And guess what? You get the doll set. Yeah, it seems like the other guy left. That's fine. He was like, this guy sucks. He's lost to Bloodstarved Beast like 15 times. I'm gonna move on to a better Bloodborne streamer. Also, the old Hunter's Bone. I will be investing in Arcane so that we can use that, so that we can use Quick Step. Wondrous Madness. Small hair ornament. And 1/3 of the umbilical cord. I think that it is so interesting that the Carol Rune station from the Hunter's Dream is where they conducted the ritual to call the Hunter's Dream into existence. Imagine when this place was still active. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hunters would have to risk their lives to get down here. Although honestly, I also imagine like part of why it's so hard to get to is because it's defunct and like no longer in use. Inspect an abandoned doll. Okay, so this is really interesting. Trouble Twitch, I don't know if you know this, but they have designed the face of the doll and the face of I'm blanking on her name, but the DLC boss, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Her finger twitches? Which finger? Oh. Yes. You're talking about look closely with the eyeglass. Holy crap. I actually did not know this. I was about to talk about how they specifically designed the face for the doll and Lady Maria out of engines so that you can't build an exact replica of their face through the character creator. Where am I looking? There's a lot of messengers in the way. I saw it. That is so cool. That is so crazy. I did not know that. I knew about the whole, like, eyes on the inside thing, and I knew about the, like, special face, the special face structure stuff, but, like, I did not know that her finger twitched. That is super, super cool. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I also find it interesting that the old Hunter workshop is inside the Healing Church workshop, and the Healing Church workshop is, like, in horrible disrepair. This dude always freaks me out. But I'll let him turn around so that people can see him. He's like a weird Satan beast. And like, he's so interesting because he doesn't look like any of the other beasts in like the whole game. Like, he's got these weird goat horns and like satyr legs. Like, he's just so interesting. And he's got the fire magic stuff too going on. Like, man, he's so, like, there's got to be a reason that thing is down there. Oh yeah, so I think that this was a hunter. That is my theory. I think that this was a hunter because also when we get to that rune later on, like way later on, the Healing Church was trying to make beast hunters. And the fact that he has, like, weird arcane fire magic when most beasts are, like, horribly afraid of fire, and especially considering, when we get to, man, I'm blanking on everyone's names today, but the first hunter, he has like weird fire stuff going on, and he gives you the Forbidden Beast rune. And this guy also gives you a Forbidden Beast rune. And like, just like the state of him, because also you'll notice that like his feet are weirdly humanoid, right? Of like, yeah, he only has like 3 toes, but like, those are like not crazy far from human feet. And like a lot of the other beasts are like much more paw and claw like. And like he's got these really funky horns. And like it's just like there's so much about him that begs the question of like, what is his deal? And he's also got like this long tail. Very strange. Very strange. But that is my theory, is that he is actually an old church beast hunter. Yeah, the beast possessed soul. And that's another reason. That creature is called the beast possessed soul.
A night of curses. A night to remember. Wouldn't you say, friend?
Wouldn't you say, friend? A night to remember. I love that there are bottles that you can kick around. Hey, what's up, bro? Isn't there a dog here, too? Thought there was. Yay, Rumbled Yarnum hat. Oh yes, there's the dog. Okay, so I'm not gonna do the bag sequence with this guy, because like I actually want to open the gates. But holy shit, are these guys terrifying. And we'll get to... I guess we're gonna do the bag sequence. Man, he just drop-kicked me to death. Wow. He hit that like Ganondorf down A from Smash. My earphone fell out. He pulled the stick. Yeah. Yeah, he did. I find this sequence to be so interesting. I just love the idea of, like, this game really understands that the scariest thing of all is change. And the fact that after Bloodstarved Beast, you get all of these new enemies walking around, and, like, you're like, oh crap, they weren't there, what's their deal? Like, they weren't there before, what's their deal? And they're super tough. Like, oh my god, I'm terrified. And then you die to them, and you're like, alright, fine, I died, whatever, now I know he's there. Then you get that sequence, and then you wake up in an unfamiliar area with no lamp, and you're just like, oh dear god, what's gonna happen to me? Madmen toll surreptitiously in rituals to beckon the moon, uncover their secrets. Oh yeah, no, the first time you die to one of those guys, it will always trigger this sequence. It's not just the one in Cathedral Ward. Here is something, though. Gascoigne's garb counts as church garb. For this NPC down here.
Oh, merciful God, help me. In the name
I also love that this church hunter is here, like, clearly got kidnapped as well, like, along with you, and is just like, I'm terrified. Where is this place? Because it also shows so much that, like, there are so many people who don't know what the whole deal is.
by your garb, the healing church, you've come to save me. Oh, thank you, dear saint.
Yeah, Trouble Twitch, you are right. This is a totally different interaction if you're not wearing church garb. Fortunately, Gascoigne's set counts as church garb. I believe Henrik's set does as well, but I've never gotten it early enough to test.
It's sure to please an upstanding member of the church like you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was seized on the street. There were many others, and I've heard moan. So, then the streets are perilous. Perhaps it isn't my place to. Do you know somewhere? Oh,
Go to Odin Chapel. Everybody go to Odin Chapel.
I pray for success on your hunt, kind hunter. I'll set out. I pray for kind.
Cool. So we took care of that. Yeah, no, Gascoigne's garb totally counts as church garb. My phone's going off telling me that things on my Steam wish list are on sale. That's nice. I love this whole area because it really encapsulates how well this game does horror. Of, like, just watch this. The fact that you can just hear rustling and, like, see something just out of sight go past the doorway is so good. It's so good. The first time I saw that, I freaked out. It's so good. You hate the witches? Oh yeah, everyone hates the witches. They suck. They're the worst. We're just gonna go ahead and light this lamp. And then we just need one more thing. Hey, what's up, guys? I just want this. Oh, you just executioner, like, punch to the back of the head. I'll clear out, Hypogean, Gaol later. I just wanted the moon rune. Because you have a buddy in art class who's into Lovecraft. I really love everything that this game does in terms of like genre switching, because it first areas are all Victorian horror and they become very Lovecraftian very quickly. It's it's just really, it's masterful is what it is. It's just like they really understand this feeling of like creating change and motion in your plot so that the player can never really get comfortable. I just love it. Alright, well, unfortunately it is 8 p.m. and we didn't get to quite everything that I wanted to get to today, but that's alright. So, I'm not sure when I'm going to be streaming Bloodborne again. I will likely be streaming again on Saturday, but I will probably be taking some time away from Bloodborne, trying out a different game. Something a little more casual, but definitely we're going to still be doing... Be sure to check out Mortal Shells. Oh, I'm going to probably look it up after I am no longer live, because if I run too many things at once, my computer screams at me. Because it is a laptop. Yeah, so we'll get to some other stuff. I will probably be doing some off-screen grinding, so we can come back to some special surprises. When we come back, I'll plan on doing probably Yargul, like Hypogean Gaol, so that we can do the rest of Jura's quest line. We can take on Dark Beast Parl, although he's pretty tough this early in the game. And then we'll probably do Hemwick as well. I actually like to do Hemwick before Vicar Amelia, and I'll kind of show people why that is. I think that area is a lot better balanced for before Vicar Amelia, but of course a lot of people end up doing it after because it's past where Vicar Amelia is on the map. We also may do some scraping, get some NPCs in Cathedral Ward, clear out that kind of stuff, and maybe even try and take on the two hunters on the far side of Cathedral Ward, the Rifle Spear Hunter and the Tonitrus Hunter, just for fun, just because it's a cool fight, and hopefully, if we get to everything, we may even take on Henrik and advance Eileen's quest line. So we'll see, but thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. So be back on Saturday, and I will see you around. Thanks.